I remember it vividly, the night that forever changed my life. I was a rookie police officer, eager to prove myself and make a difference in the world. Little did I know I was about to experience something beyond my worst nightmares. It was a moonless night, shrouded in an eerie silence. Dispatch had received a call from an anonymous source, reporting strange and disturbing activities in an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. As the closest unit, my partner, Officer Johnson, and I were dispatched to investigate. As we approached the dilapidated house, a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The overgrown vegetation seemed to claw at the decaying walls, as if nature itself was repelled by the sinister secrets within. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding, and gripped my flashlight tighter. We cautiously entered the house, the creaking floorboards beneath our feet echoing through the silence. The air was thick with an inexplicable heaviness, as if the very essence of evil lurked in every corner. Each step forward felt like wading through a pool of apprehension. The first room we encountered was adorned with cracked mirrors, their surfaces marred by years of neglect. In the dim light, I caught glimpses of distorted reflections, twisted and contorted. It was as if the mirrors held the spirits of tormented souls, trapped within their glass prisons. We continued our exploration, the tension in the air growing with each passing moment. The house seemed to breathe around us, its walls whispering dark secrets only the walls themselves knew. The feeling of being watched intensified, sending shivers down my spine. As we ascended a decaying staircase, the sound of distant laughter reached our ears. Hollow and chilling, it seemed to come from every direction. The house itself seemed alive, taunting us with its malevolent presence. Officer Johnson and I exchanged uneasy glances but pressed on. On the second floor, we stumbled upon a room that froze the blood in our veins. It was a child's bedroom, adorned with faded wallpaper and broken toys. But what caught our attention was the pentagram etched into the wooden floor, surrounded by candles that still flickered with an otherworldly glow. Suddenly, a door slammed shut behind us, sealing off our only escape. Panic gripped us as we realized we were trapped, ensnared in a web of supernatural terror. The laughter grew louder, reverberating through the house, mingling with the desperate pounding of our hearts. In the flickering candlelight, we caught sight of a figure in the corner of the room. It was a gaunt, shadowy figure, its eyes burning with a malevolence that chilled us to the bone. It reached out towards us, its bony fingers elongating as if possessed by an otherworldly force. With a surge of adrenaline, Officer Johnson and I fought back, desperately trying to fend off the supernatural entity, but our efforts were futile. It was as if we were swatting at air, unable to touch the dark being that sought to consume us. Time seemed to stand still as the figure advanced, its ethereal form blending seamlessly with the darkness surrounding us. Just as all hope seemed lost, a blinding light filled the room, banishing the malevolent presence. We shielded our eyes, confused and disoriented. When the light subsided, we found ourselves standing outside the abandoned house, our bodies trembling with exhaustion. The house stood before us, silent and lifeless once more. It was as if the horrors we had experienced were nothing more than a twisted nightmare. But the nightmares continued to haunt us, leaving an indelible mark on our souls. The horrors we witnessed that night were beyond explanation, beyond comprehension. They were a reminder that in the darkest corners of our world, evil exists, lurking in the shadows, waiting to prey upon the unsuspecting. Since that night, Officer Johnson and I have vowed to protect and serve, to fight against the darkness that threatens to consume us all. But in the back of my mind, I know that the true horror lies not in the monsters we face on the streets, but in the unknown horrors that await us in the darkest corners of reality. Title: The Shadowed Case. I had always been drawn to the dark and disturbing side of life, which is why I became a police officer. My insatiable curiosity often led me down twisted paths, but nothing could have prepared me for the horrors I would encounter in one particular case. It began on a gloomy autumn evening when a call came in about a house with strange noises and an eerie presence. As I arrived at the address, an unsettling feeling crept up my spine. The house stood dilapidated and desolate, its windows boarded up like eyes hiding a terrible secret. I cautiously stepped inside, my flashlight illuminating the path before me. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread. Each step echoed ominously, as if the house itself whispered warnings of its haunted past. Shadows danced menacingly on the walls, their dark forms shifting and contorting. I ventured deeper into the house, my heart pounding in my chest. The creaking floorboard seemed to protest my intrusion, as if the house itself resented being disturbed. Suddenly, a flickering light caught my attention, guiding me toward the basement. With trepidation, I descended the stairs into the abyss below. The basement was a realm of darkness and decay. The stench of rot filled the air, suffocating my senses. The feeble beam of my flashlight revealed a grotesque sight. A room adorned with blood-soaked walls and strange symbols etched into the floor. Panic began to consume me, but I pressed on, compelled to uncover the truth. As I made my way through the sinister chamber, I discovered an old journal tucked away in a corner. Its pages were worn and yellowed, filled with ramblings of a deranged mind. The author spoke of summoning ancient beings and making unholy bargains, their words a chilling testament to the malevolence that dwelled within those walls. Just as I thought I couldn't bear the weight of the darkness any longer, a bone-chilling sound echoed through the basement, the distinct laughter of a child. My blood turned to ice, and I followed the sound to a small, concealed alcove. There, huddled in the corner, was a child, barely recognizable amidst the filth and decay. With trembling hands, I reached out to comfort the child, but as my fingers brushed against their skin, I recoiled in horror. Their flesh was cold and lifeless, as if they were nothing more than a hollow shell. The laughter grew louder, piercing my ears and filling the room with an otherworldly presence. Desperation gripped me as I frantically searched for a way out, but the more I ran, the tighter the labyrinth of the house became, leading me deeper into its sinister clutches. The walls closed in, and the shadows whispered dreadful secrets into my ears. Days blurred into nights, and time lost all meaning. My mind became a twisted maze of fear and paranoia. I was no longer alone. The spirits of the past tormented me, their mournful wails reverberating through the corridors of my mind. Finally, on the brink of insanity, I stumbled upon a room, its walls adorned with photographs of missing children. Their eyes stared at me from the frames, accusing me for failing to save them. The laughter of the child followed me relentlessly, their haunting voice a constant reminder of my own helplessness. As I write these words, I am still trapped within the malevolent confines of that house. The darkness has claimed me, its tendrils suffocating my soul. I implore you, dear reader, to heed my warning and stay away from the house on Elm Street, for once you enter, there is no escape from the horrors that lie within. Title: Behind the Badge. It was a cold, moonless night as I patrolled the desolate streets, shrouded in an eerie silence. As a police officer, I had become accustomed to encountering strange and unsettling situations, but nothing could have prepared me for the horrors that awaited me that night. The dispatch crackled to life, breaking the silence with a chilling voice. A distressed woman reported strange noises coming from her neighbor's house. My instincts kicked in, and I accelerated toward the address she provided, the unease lingering in the pit of my stomach. As I arrived, the house stood before me, a decrepit structure with peeling paint and an aura of darkness that seemed to seep from within. I cautiously approached the front door, my hand resting on the cold grip of my service weapon. With each step, an unshakable sense of dread washed over me, whispering warnings I couldn't comprehend. I knocked on the door, the sound echoing through the silent night. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that seemed to stretch into infinity. I called out, announcing my presence as I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was heavy, suffocating, and I could feel unseen eyes watching my every move. I navigated through the labyrinthine corridors, my footsteps muffled by the worn-out carpet beneath my boots. Each room I entered held a macabre secret, a glimpse into a disturbed mind. The walls were adorned with grotesque paintings, the floor littered with decaying remnants of forgotten lives. As I reached the basement door, a sickening smell wafted through the air, causing my eyes to water. The pungent odor of decay mingled with an undeniable metallic tang, and my mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Steeling myself, I descended into the abyss below, my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the damp, moldy walls. The flickering light revealed a horrific scene. In the center of the room, a blood-soaked table stood, surrounded by rusty tools, stained with the evidence of unspeakable acts. The walls were lined with photographs of mutilated bodies, each one capturing the final moments of innocent lives. I fought the bile that rose in my throat, my mind struggling to comprehend the unimaginable evil that had transpired in this place. Suddenly, a noise echoed from the darkest corner of the room, causing my heart to seize in my chest. I swung my flashlight toward the source, revealing a figure huddled in the shadows. It was a man, his eyes hollow and devoid of humanity. A sinister smile crept across his face, and a chill ran down my spine. With a surge of adrenaline, I drew my weapon and demanded the man surrender. But instead of complying, he lunged at me, his movements unnatural and inhuman. We grappled, his strength surpassing anything I had ever encountered. Fear gnawed at my resolve as I realized I was no match for this embodiment of pure malevolence. Just as I thought my fate was sealed, a blinding light filled the room. Backup had arrived, and with their combined efforts, we managed to subdue the deranged man. As we hauled him away, his laughter echoed through the halls, searing itself into my memory. Months have passed since that haunting night, but the horrors I witnessed continue to haunt my dreams. The evil that resides in the darkest recesses of humanity had shown itself to me, and I was forever changed. As a police officer, I swore to protect and serve, but that night I realized there are forces beyond our comprehension, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike. And so, I continue to walk the thin line between order and chaos, forever wary of the darkness that dwells within, and the chilling horrors that await behind the badge. I've always been fascinated by the supernatural and the unexplained. That's why I became a police officer, to unravel the mysteries that lie hidden in the darkness. Little did I know that my curiosity would lead me down a path of terror and unimaginable horrors. One foggy night, I received a call about a disturbance at an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. As I approached the location, a sense of unease washed over me. The house stood like a shadow against the moonlit sky, its broken windows staring at me like the eyes of a malevolent entity. I cautiously entered the house, my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the decaying walls. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, and each creaking floorboard sent shivers down my spine. As I made my way through the dimly lit corridors, whispers seemed to echo from the walls, chilling me to the bone. Suddenly, I heard a muffled scream coming from the basement. Without hesitation, I hurried down the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. The basement was pitch black, and the stench of decay hung in the air. I fumbled for my flashlight and turned it on, revealing a gruesome sight. There, in the center of the room, lay a dismembered body, blood pooling around it. The walls were covered in cryptic symbols, drawn with what appeared to be fresh blood. As I took a step back, the whispers grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of malevolent voices. Unable to shake off the feeling of being watched, I rushed back upstairs, determined to find the source of this evil. I began searching room after room, each one seemingly more sinister than the last. In one room, I discovered a collection of disturbing photographs depicting tortured souls and grotesque rituals. My heart raced as I realized that this house was a haven for something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. It was a gathering place for a cult that reveled in darkness and human suffering. I had stumbled upon a den of pure evil. As I continued my investigation, I found myself plagued by nightmares and a growing sense of dread. It felt as though an invisible force was toying with my sanity, pushing me closer to the edge. Shadows danced at the corners of my vision, and whispers filled my mind even in the silence of my own home. The nights grew longer, and the horrors I had witnessed haunted my every waking moment. I delved deeper into the mysteries of the cult, determined to bring them to justice. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized that I was dealing with an entity far more powerful than anything I had encountered before. Soon my fellow officers began experiencing the same nightmares and paranoia that had consumed me. The evil had infected our minds, turning us against each other. Friendships crumbled, and trust was shattered as darkness enveloped our lives. In the end, it was a battle for survival. We fought against the grip of the cult, but their influence was too strong. One by one, my comrades fell victim to their twisted rituals, their souls lost to the void. I was the last one standing, the lone survivor in a world consumed by darkness. As I write this, I can still hear the whispers, taunting me from the shadows. I know that I am being hunted, that the cult will stop at nothing to ensure their secrets remain hidden, but I will not be silenced. I will not let their evil prevail. For now, I roam the streets alone, forever haunted by the horrors I witnessed. The scars run deep, both seen and unseen, and though I may never find peace, I continue my quest, shining a light into the darkest corners of this world, fighting against the unknown, and hoping to save others from the same fate that befell my fallen comrades. But be warned, dear reader, the darkness is real, and it lurks in the most unexpected of places. Trust not in what you see, for evil wears many masks, and once you cross its path, there is no turning back. I was a police officer assigned to a small, quiet town known as Maplewood. It was the kind of place where nothing much ever happened, and crime was practically non-existent. But one fateful night, my perception of Maplewood would be forever altered, as I encountered a series of disturbing and terrifying events that would haunt me to this day. It started like any other shift. The night was cold and desolate, and an eerie silence enveloped the town. I sat in my patrol car, the radio crackling with occasional reports from other officers, but as the hours ticked by, an unsettling feeling washed over me. It was as if an invisible presence lurked in the darkness, watching my every move. Just as I was about to dismiss my unease as mere paranoia, a call came through the radio. A frantic voice pleaded for help, reporting strange sounds and movements inside an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. It was a notorious hotspot for local legends and ghost stories, but I had always dismissed them as the product of overactive imaginations. I arrived at the house, its paint peeling and windows shattered, casting long shadows in the moonlight. The air was heavy with an oppressive stillness as I cautiously approached the front door. With each step, the feeling of being watched intensified, causing my heart to race and beads of sweat to form on my brow. I pushed open the creaking door, revealing a dimly lit interior. A foul stench permeated the air, assaulting my senses. My flashlight trembled in my grip as I ventured deeper into the house, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The eerie silence was shattered by distant whispers, growing louder and more menacing with every passing second. Suddenly the whispers ceased, replaced by a bone-chilling laughter that seemed to echo from all directions. My blood ran cold as the laughter morphed into guttural growls and sinister whispers. Panic gripped my chest, but I couldn't bring myself to flee. It was as if an invisible force held me in place, a pawn in some macabre game. As I made my way upstairs, the source of the haunting sounds became apparent. In a dimly lit room, I discovered a wall covered in unsettling symbols and occult writings. The air thickened, suffocating me as malevolent energy pulsed through the room. I stumbled backward, desperate to escape its clutches, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. As I made my way upstairs, the source of the haunting sounds became apparent. In a dimly lit room, I discovered a wall covered in unsettling symbols and occult writings. The air thickened, suffocating me as malevolent energy pulsed through the room. I stumbled backward, desperate to escape its clutches, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. My heart pounded in my ears as the walls began to writhe and contort, taking on grotesque forms. The room seemed to expand and contract, like a living organism. Faces materialized in the peeling wallpaper, their eyes vacant yet filled with malevolence. I was trapped in a nightmarish labyrinth of my own fears. The room plunged into darkness, save for a faint flickering light at the far end. Drawing on the last vestiges of my courage, I followed the light, my legs heavy with dread. I reached a door, cracked open just enough to reveal a sliver of what lay beyond. As I peered through the gap, a wave of terror washed over me. On the other side, I saw a distorted reflection of myself, twisted and contorted. The figure turned its head slowly, its eyes devoid of humanity. It smiled, a grotesque grin that seemed to stretch impossibly wide. A low, gravelly voice whispered, "Welcome to the nightmare, officer." With a surge of adrenaline, I forced the door open, stumbling out into the night. I collapsed onto the front lawn, gasping for breath, The house loomed behind me, silent and still, as if mocking my escape. In the days that followed, I discovered that the house had a dark history. It was once the site of occult rituals and unspeakable acts. Its twisted energy had infected those who dared to enter, driving them to madness or worse. I left the police force shortly after, unable to shake the lingering nightmares and the feeling of being watched. Maplewood, once a sanctuary, had become tainted by a darkness I couldn't comprehend. And though I try to forget, the memory of that haunted house and the horrors it unleashed will forever haunt my every waking moment. So beware the abandoned houses and the whispers that linger in the night, for evil can lurk even in the most unsuspecting of places.